Click the links to join the channel here over at SubScribestar. Somebody on SubScribestar said to put the YouTube members' videos on SubScribestar from now on, so that way they didn't have to subscribe to both. And that idea actually never occurred to me. So I will do it going forward. But the YouTube members' videos will now be all over a SubScribestar, which I think is probably cheaper anyway. And, a lot of people don't want to support the lizard people over at Google. So Helldiver, fascist super Earth, and the fascists were the good guys the whole time, and apparently the developers thought they were pulling one over on the audience, and it's not that so much as with Starship Trooper. The audience just doesn't care. We don't take all this stuff that seriously. So is fascism bad? No, fascism is based and cool, actually. The left has a problem with civil discourse. It'd probably be a great study, but universities are not what they used to be. Some things have become haram decade by decade. Anything doing with cognitive abilities across groups. Some Japanese professor just got in trouble for that because left-wing American political correctness is so powerful that it is even extended to Japan to put pressure on a Japanese researcher who was studying different groups and their different abilities. So the left has an echo chamber, but it hits a brick wall when the outside world isn't on board their idea, especially when it comes time for the left wing to pony up the $17 to go see a movie, and then suddenly they find out that, they've got a really tied up that weekend, as you saw with, well, I was going to say Captain America or the Marvels or Madam Web, or there's just been a ton of movies over the past 5 years where the left wing just does not turn up to support these things. They say they love this stuff and take my money, and it just suddenly the theaters are empty. And what's the movie coming up in tomorrow or the next day? Snow White. I'm almost certain it's going to be in the same situation. So the outside world is not on board with their ideas. Like with woke movies and video games and comics and whatnot, they're just not selling. The left has a set of beliefs and things that they say they value, and among themselves, they all agree that anyone who disagrees with mixed race outgroup preferences, gay space communism, is leheckin bad. Chudaruno. They start with these conclusions and conclude with them, and they haven't had to challenge their ideas via calm, reasonable discussion like adults are supposed to be able to engage in without emotional outbursts. But they haven't been able to do that for so long that they don't know how to do it without appeals to emotion or authority or ad hominems or deflections. So when they're in this position of having to convince logical, calm people of an argument, they don't know how to do it. They have buzzwords like fascist that means something to them that's different what it means to other people. We're kind of splitting away from common definitions, kind of getting to this Tower of Babel, where we have to ask left-wingers their definitions of the words they use, and they get frustrated because in their minds, they think there are no different perspectives available. There's only the correct perspective, and magically they're the ones who have it. Ask them to define man, woman, fascist, Nazi, and they respond with one-liners or ad hominems, but they never respond with, if you ask them the definition of a man, they'll go, something you'll never be. The definition of a woman, something you'll never get. It's the same stupid stuff. You go, okay, but can we discuss this as adults? And the answer to that would be, sir, that is a bridge too far. Because a lot of this is an admission that they do have their own definitions, or their circular definitions, or ever-shifting definitions to suit the purpose of the day, or they don't have any. The words are just used as control terms to manipulate the other person, which is what you're seeing way too often today. And it's kind of a sign of one of the many things that are attached to this very unstable society. They attach these buzzwords to people or things, and they never bother to have the argument stage of the discussion, like with Helldivers or Starship Troopers. The Heinlein book made into the movie, and they're getting ready to reboot that movie, which is just going to be unbelievable levels of cringe. That I'm actually looking forward to, much more than Snow White, which I guess comes out tomorrow for previews. And their love of media literacy. Another buzzword, which means accepting the author's narrative instead of thinking for yourself. And you go, oh, hey, media literacy. Okay, the creator had one intent for this this story, whether it's movie or book or something, and you go, oh, but this is a different interpretation. Now, it used to be when you got together with people and you discuss books or art, everyone could have a different interpretation. It's like, oh, you thought of something that no one else thought of, or this is a different way to interpret the scene of Les Miserables where the guy is staring at the water. It's like, oh, we never considered that. It might not be accurate, but it's like it's something to get you thinking in a different perspective. I remember that from high school, the guy staring on the bridge, staring at the water, and I think teacher said water was change. That was it's actually a remedial like English class for jocks. Anyway, Starship Troopers, the movie version, is them trying to parody the right wing, but they don't understand the right wing. The right understands the left much more. In most situations, the people who come to the right grew up under the left-wing globalist media and government schools. We understand their point of view, and we know why it's garbage. The right wing has a lot more sympathy and empathy. We're able to kind of model the left wing's thinking processes, and there's been studies done that show the left wing doesn't know how the right wing thinks. They just have all these bizarre straw men. Think about the Civil War and the things that Lincoln did to win. And, even when you're a kid, you're like, whenever you cover that in grammar school, I think it's, I don't know, somewhere like you're 12, 13, 14, and you're old enough to know that you're talking about the things Lincoln did to win. You're like, wait a minute, those are unconstitutional. Something's wrong here. And the teacher doesn't want to go, yeah, Lincoln was a monster, unless you're in the South, maybe, but I was in the North. And yet the perspective was that he and the North were the good guys instead of the monsters. History is written by the victor, and it's a lie. It's like, how come about the South's generals and what monsters they were alleged to be? And it's like, oh, what about the North? Oh, we're just gonna kind of brush past that. And unfortunately, everything the left thinks they know about fascism, they learned, though, with Trump and these judicial decrees, it was Andrew Jackson was talking about good luck enforcing these things because the judiciary doesn't have an army. Unfortunately, everything the left thinks they know about fascism, they learned from fictional Hollywood. And even when the movie tells you it's fiction, the left assumes it's based on a true story. I want to use some slurs here, but I won't, because they have no idea. They're just they're very naive when they hear things that reinforce the things that they want to be true. Because while the left does read more, or at least they used to, now I'd say in the past 10 years, because of cell phones and social media, reading has just dropped off a cliff. A lot of the stuff the left reads is dumb. It's heavy echo chamber, Oprah Winfrey Book of the Month Club. And you go through and read this stuff and you're like, this is written by idiots for idiots. And they're so proud of themselves. Like left-wing Twitter, or someone in the comments yesterday was talking about book talk. They show their bookshelves and you zoom in on their bookshelves and like, oh, this is all just stupid books. These aren't like, historical analysis from different perspectives. These are just Oprah Winfrey type of coffee table type of books or romance or that kind of thing. The thing is, the left doesn't read the history of war or anything that they disagree with. If the left reads a diversity of perspective, they simply wouldn't be on the left. So a society needs an agreed upon foundation of values, a moral framework, language that creates stability to build on. The most important thing is race, because everything is downstream from the hardware. And that should be logical, but because of political correctness, the left wing hears these words and they immediately have an emotional response to these kind of things. As you can see, when different ethnicities are in proximity, what happens? They fight. They have endless conflict. Just look at the destruction of America and now Canada, Australia, and Europe. As diversity increases, so does the conflict. That's the goal of the open borders, to destroy. This difference in shared language and values, you can see a small example of it in why Indiana Jones Part 5 failed. Spectacular failure. Because the audience doesn't have the same values as they did when Raiders of the Lost Ark came out. a beautifully filmed movie, even now, still worth watching, because people's understanding of history changes. In the first one, the Germans were like a cartoonish parody of an antagonist, but it was a kids' movie, and the kids didn't really care. You knew Indy was the hero, and even now I can go back and watch Raiders and still think it's a brilliant movie, even if it was cartoonishly silly with the Germans and the guy with the he's like hanging up his coat or something, and it's just he's got it looks like it's some kind of nunchucks or something, and it's just a coat hanger. And everyone opposed to Indy is going to be the bad guys, as long as Indy had the high moral standards. He had the high ground. That's why Han Solo was a lovable rogue and space pirate, but not really a classic pirate because he was a smuggler. But he was smuggling against the Empire, who was portrayed as the bad guys. He still had the high moral high ground. But in Indy 5, so much time had gone by since the first good movie, or good movies in general, because there's been the past 10 years, there's not been as many good movies. And since the 2020 Soros-funded domestic terrorist black riots, and honorable mention to Antifa, to be fair, I guess maybe it's just communist riots. There has not been a whole lot of good movies. You're shown these two sides, and in Hollywood's eyes, of course, Indy's the good guy because the Germans are the bad guys. But now the audience is asking, well, why exactly? Indy is teamed up with these two annoying diverse women and a diverse sidekick, and we look at the Germans, and our subconscious is telling us, well, they're the good guys because they're our race, and they have nationalist values, which are pro-family, patriarchy, and stability, and those are all good things. Indy has a whining, single, 40-year-old feminist cat mom. No offense, I do like cats. Some blackish kid and some black FBI agent with an admittedly cool fro. If I was black, I'd be bringing back the froze. The whole like buying hair is just such a marketing psyop. But the Germans, there's zero black people listening to this. The Germans have blonde people of the light, and all things being equal, we're going to take the side of the Germans because even though we might not all be Germans, sad for you if you're not, but even if you're Russian, English, or Greek or whatever, the Germans are your tribe, where Indy's diversity hires are clearly not your tribe. But Mangold didn't seem to understand this. In his mind, he's got the Axis side of the Germans and the American side of Indy, and of course the audience knows the Germans are the bad guys, but it's current year. We don't know that. That's a conclusion, and in current year, we need an argument. Why exactly are we supposed to be on the side of Indy and not on the side of the Germans? Subconsciously, this is a huge burden to overcome to get the European American audience to root against their own white tribe. And the other issue is things don't happen in a vacuum. We've had several years of the BLM domestic terrorism, and while the movie is set in the 60s and civil rights, open borders, and integration, well, 60 years later, we can admit that those things were a fatal mistake. Diversity is a cancer that destroyed a high-trust, safe society and turned it into, I don't know, South Africa meets Brazil. No offense. And to ask a left-winger, why exactly are the Axis the bad guys and the Allies the good guys, kind of blows their minds and just causes an emotional reaction of ad hominems and deflections. But it doesn't get people to buy tickets, because now people are starting to understand that if the Axis had won the war, Europe would still be European. That's the harsh, politically incorrect reality that people are dealing with. And I think Tucker Carlson just had a discussion on that a couple days ago, and it caused much anxiety on Twitter. Diversity is just giving your country away to invaders. It's like a mass psychosis has taken over people's minds. Pod people or something. Anyway, so with Helldivers or Warhammer 40K or the upcoming Starship Trooper movie, which is going to be a fudging abomination, the left wing has an association to the word fascist that goes right to a negative. I mean, I'm so looking forward to that. It's going to be so heavy-handed. It goes right to a negative conclusion, but everyone else it goes to a positive or at least inconclusive, because the shifting definitions, we're not really sure what you mean when you say that, because a lot of times they just mean, oh, people of European descent. The other thing is, when Raiders came out, America was probably still over 70% white. It's about 55% now, and the non-white demographic doesn't care about fascism or themes from various white people wars because it's not their history. To them, fascism is just a system of government. It's neutral, which is true. It is just a neutral term. The Allies didn't team up to fight the ideology fascism. That's just Hollywood brainwashing. It was militaries fighting militaries. America was fighting the Japanese because they dragged them into the war. Fascism is great, and it's not the problem. Invading other countries is the problem. Stalin and communist Russia invaded Poland, which is one of those details of history that people seem to forget, and they don't walk away talking about the horrors of communism because Hollywood never told them of the horrors of communism, and they never questioned why. Why is there this blank spot on the map? So Starship Troopers or Helldivers aren't a test in media literacy. They're a demonstration of the echo chamber the left wing is in. Because in their minds, their globalist, diversity hire, trans, dilating military is hecking wholesome when they lay out landmines that look like toys to crippled children, versus when the other side does the exact same thing because they labeled the bad guys the fascists. And they think we're being purposely disingenuous when we ask them to show us how exactly they're the bad guys, because we need to see a group doing bad things. We don't just call our enemies communists so that we can kill them. It's not pulling one side. I mean, the left wing believes in that. And they have this logical argument where they go, do violence to these people we call fascists, and then they call people fascists. And it's like, oh, what a clever two-step process that is. I mean, anyway, it's not pulling one over on the audience. When how are these videos ever going to get monetized? When we're rooting for the fascists, they're the good guys in these shows. Yes, of course we're on their side. In Starship Troopers, you had a group of humans fighting bugs. And the hecking media literacy is rooting for the bugs because, these bugmen. Of course, the jingoistic fascists are the bad guys. We get the over-the-top humor. That's part of the joke of how easily people can be manipulated to the left or the right. So the kids' commercials showing them killing bugs in the Starship Troopers movies, they're stomping them out. Would you like to know more? And it's stupid, but at the end of the day, we're humans, and we side with humanity against literally every other group. It's the in-group preference meme versus the out-group preference meme. It's like a heat map image. It might work as a better maybe I'll use it as a thumbnail. If the bugs instead were angels and the humans were so blindly loyal to their dear leaders that they were brainwashed into fighting against the army of God who was trying to save them, but then got kind of trapped into a battle, they could team up with Satan's forces to really make it absurd. Then everyone would start to wonder, well, what the hell was going on? But they were so firmly committed to fighting that they've been doing it for generations. Their economies were dependent on it. It's part of their tradition and culture, so they just kept fighting. Instead, you have the fascist side as a group of young, fit, good-looking soldiers fighting literal bugs. Or in Indy, you have time-traveling Nazis. They should have shown Indy the future, and he probably would have joined them. Hollywood forgot that they have to show people why the audience should be on one side or the other and not just tell them. And they're actually, now that I remember, there's it was like, what do you call that? Science fiction, but it's war-based science fiction. I don't think I have the book anymore. It's a collection of short stories. And one of the short stories is these people are fighting on Earth for so long that eventually they're in hell, and they're fighting demons, and it just continues on for hundreds of years, and they don't even notice that they're in hell. I forget the guy who wrote the book, or you can probably ask Grok. It's good for, Grok's good for finding stuff that's like surface level type of stuff, nothing that's hidden too deep. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Like I said, you can join the SubScribe if you don't want to join Google, as that guy suggested to me, and I will put the members videos all on SubScribe from now on. Anyway, I will see you guys all next episode.